And let's talk about the Greeks. Do they deserve to be in the situation that they are in? Let's get a word now with an independent member of the European Parliament for the West Midlands, Nikki Sinclaire. Hello, Nikki.
Good morning, Adrian.
Simple question, isn't it, really? Do the Greeks deserve it?
I don't think the Greek people deserve it. I think it's the result of their greedy politicians who bought into this Euro dream and have made their people suffer as a result of it.
When you say they've bought into the Euro dream, there are a number of countries that have the Euro, but they're not suffering in the way that the Greeks are. So, I mean, there is a specific Greek dimension to this Greek tragedy, isn't there?
Yes, the thought initially that all these economies, that Greece could be equivalent to Germany or France or ourselves was absolutely ridiculous proposition. And you know, what's been clear it's happened now, and BBC did an excellent documentary about a week or so ago, that basically the figures were fudged. The convergence criteria right at the beginning were fudged because this was never really an economic project. It was a political project, and they ignored basic economic rules. And it's not just Greece now, is it? We're hearing from Spain today that one of their major banks are in problems, and that has more problems for us in the UK because it's mainly French banks that are exposed to the Greek debt, but we've got much more exposure to Spanish debt.
Yeah, so this is called contagion. You have a problem. You say, oh, well, the Greeks, they're in trouble. Pfft, poor old Greeks. You say, oh, yeah, the Spanish, they're in trouble. Poor old Spaniards. But if it's a Spanish bank problem, then actually it's a British bank problem. And if it's a British bank problem, that's our money they're talking about.
Oh, that's right. And then, you know, I was talking to Greek politicians being reckless and, you know, and not representing their people correctly. And what about our politicians? You know, 15, 20 years ago, I was campaigning against the euro, not just against Britain's membership. I was campaigning that the whole thing would be doomed to failure. And I absolutely really take no delight at being proven right because, you know, in Greece we're seeing an increase of the suicide rate by 46%. It is absolutely, you know, people leaving children outside churches. This is Europe we're talking about. This isn't some third world, you know, country that we need to give aid to. And it's absolutely awful. And all this is because this is politicians' folly. They wanted to create a federal European Union that we could all live together. It was a pipe dream. We are all different. And I just feel really desperate for the people of Greece, and I don't think that they deserve it. Nikki,
let me just interrupt you there, because I just want to quote you the comments of Christine Lagarde. She is the head of the International Monetary Fund, and obviously the job of the IMF is to try and make sure that the world's economies sort of all hang together, and she brokers the deals whereby Britain might donate several billion euros, and the EU as a group would donate several billion euros to try and help the Greeks.
We gave 10 billion a few weeks ago.
Yeah, to try and pop up their economy. This is what she said in an interview with The Guardian today. She says when she was asked about the problems that Greece is facing and the kind of problems that you're alluding to, people leaving children outside of orphanages, people not being able to get life-saving drugs at the moment in Greece. She says, I think more of the little kids from a school in a little village in Niger who get teaching 2 hours a day, sharing one chair for 3 of them, who are very keen to get an education. I have them in my mind all the time because I think they need even more help than the people in Athens. So she's pointing out there are people who are plenty worse off in the world than the Greeks. Then she goes on to say, do you know what? As far as Athens is concerned, I also think about all those people who are trying to escape tax all the time. All these people in Greece who are trying to escape tax. Now, you talk about the corrupt politicians, but she's putting some burden of responsibility on the Greek people themselves, saying they have for many years, collectively, not paid their taxes.
And I think that's true, but that's the politician's job to put in place a system where taxes are collected. I think all of us would like to pay less tax if we could get away with it, but that's not the reality. We have a system that collects our HMRC has a very good system of collecting taxes in this country, and the Greek politicians should have had that system as well. But, you know, we're in a vicious circle. The Greek people are no longer having confidence in their government, the economy, or the European Union. You know, holidays now, people want to actually take... The Greeks only want cash bookings. They would rather take sterling than euros at the moment. They're not putting their money in the banks. And why would they pay taxes into a system at the moment that they don't believe is working? They're going to keep as much money under their mattresses as possible. Yes, that is wrong.
There's been a rash of robberies, in fact, hasn't there? Because people are keeping so much cash at home in Greece. Nikki, one final question. You know, the British government now is putting in place emergency measures to try and ensure that if the Greece economy does go under and they exit the euro and they become very much poorer overnight, which would also help impoverish this country to a degree, the British government's putting in place measures to ensure that there isn't a flight of Greek people to this country. But if we're all in the EU, how can we suddenly be changing the rules whereby we all have freedom of movement?
Excellent. Absolutely, you can't. And that's the thing. We'd seen that, didn't we, in about 6 years ago when the Eastern Bloc countries came in. We had this mass influx of Eastern Europeans, and, you know, they wanted a better life. I don't really blame them. Again, I blame the politicians that allowed it. If you're part of this club that allows freedom of movement across Europe, you can't close the doors. And that is why I campaigned for a referendum. Do we want to be part of this club? And it's about time we had this debate in this country once and for all, because the politicians are not leading. Again, the politicians are not leading what the people want, and they should listen to the people more. We'd be much less of a mess.
Nikki, thank you so much for your time on a Saturday morning. Independent member of the European Parliament for the West Midlands, Nikki Sinclaire.